International football, I think, is the worst one. That's the most egregious one of, like, you're removing this because it's been bad for years. This is not now an oversight of, like, oh, actually, we can't put it in. You never put the work into international management. You're now paying for it.
My concern is, as someone who worked a lot in games marketing, that they're going to be starting from such a low point because of some of the stuff that's been removed, that then getting that momentum rolling and getting back to where they want to be is going to be trickier.
They've kind of put a lot of pressure on themselves to not actually convince us that the product's good. They're now having to convince those people to take the punt on 25, to take the punt on 26. And, like, that's a risky game to play.
How many people are, like, taking a chance on Foot Manager because they see it on PlayStation Plus or Game Pass or Apple Arcade right now, and, like, that person who downloads that game and gets overwhelmed with the current interface?
If there's ever a time to release bad news, because Ben of 18 months ago, there would have been 4 videos by now, and it would have been bad.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the FM show. I am your host Tony Jameson, joined by Maggio this week because unfortunately RDF Tactics has a little bit of technical issue and the return of the broken PC is back. Speaking of back, WorkTheSpace is back. Hello Jack,
everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. I feel like I'm one away from a hat-trick ball. You know, in soccer, I used to get a ball after 3 appearances.
Well, you know, if we can
work towards it now,
we can get a couple more Patreons, we can start to reach out and buy some balls. So, you know, let's see how that goes. So you're going to get the hat trick possibly. Doctor Benjy making his FM show debut. Hello, Ben. How are we?
Mate. Yeah, good. Presenter of Football Manager stuff now. So that's why I mean, I'd love to be back. I just think you were trying to muster together Jack's fee there when you were like, you know, we could get through a certain amount of appearances. But yeah, Jack's obviously been paid for this appearance, whereas I'll happily do it for free because, you know, I care about the
shout out to my agent.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, annoyingly that is me. So
the thing is, we talk about the fact he's getting a football. What we haven't discussed is it's a penny floater, so it's a cheap one. It's not a proper one, unfortunately.
Good for the beach. Good for the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, because we're getting towards the winter now, so we can start to get our beach balls on and do that. So welcome, fellas. It's nice to have you all in. First of all, we'll come to Si first of all because he got the call very, very late in the day. You Jack and Ben, you've been told about this for a while, so we've been looking forward to it. Si, very quickly, how are you? Because you're carrying a bit of an orange injury, aren't you?
I am, yes. Unfortunately, I limped up the stairs quickly tonight because I tore my quad playing football. Scoring a goal, I must say. It was an impressive goal, and my team thought I was celebrating. I said, no, I'm injured. I'm going off the pitch. See you later. You can play the rest of the game yourselves. I did my bit. I did my bit, and I left. You know, that's it. Made an impact. Didn't need to do any more.
Excellent. That new viral celebration of getting an ambulance on. Let's see if you can do that next week. They'll all be doing it in the schoolyards tomorrow, right?
Well, yeah. I don't think I've quite made it to international TV or anything yet. So
is the celebration called the Siren? Maybe.
He's back. He is back. Yeah. He is back.
This is an ambulance theme.
That's a sensational. Try to make it put a sensational. I've ruined it. Can we do the start of the intro of the podcast again? I've ruined my moment.
That's the difference between competitive manager and presenter.
Well, if he sits on the touchline, he'd be part of the sidemen. So there you go. That's a cultural reference that no one was expecting from me at this moment in time. So
wow,
I realised you were so down with the kids.
Someone's got children, haven't they?
I thought that was a bottle of Prime over your shoulder.
Oh, honestly, I've never been as hydrated.
Other drink brands are available.
They are, and yeah, they don't sponsor us, so they are available. I'm
sure Jack's sponsored by some as the England representative now. Isn't England sponsored by Lucozade?
Yeah, Lucozade. You know, the contract lasts a month, so I'm still contracted. That's why I have to wear this shirt. It's an obligation.
Did you get any? Did they send you any Lucozade?
I didn't get any Lucozade, but when I was at Wembley, I had 3 bottles, and that put me off it, if I'm being honest. I drank quite a lot.
Yeah, the FIFA event was sponsored by Smart Water and Gatorade or Powerade, so I didn't get any of that either. So
I was watching that, and again, you know, like maybe this is my untrained eyes, right? And Jack, you might be able to answer me on this one. At what point did you think my glucose levels are suffering and I could do with a Gatorade?
I'll be honest, it was more when I got home and realised I was getting withdrawals off all the stuff that I had. That I realised I had far too much. I was there having caffeine crashes at 11 in the morning. It's like I've nobody had 3 full fat Cokes by now. Yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah. Was this part of the was this part of the drugs test? Was it part of the drugs test? You've talked about this, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a fun adventure. Yeah. The first ever professional football manager player to be drugs tested by the World Anti-Doping Association.
The first ever ironic drugs test as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a
What
weird
are they
one.
testing for?
Well, there's stuff like Adderall that allows you like to stay focused. It's like a prescription medication for ADHD, and stuff like aspirin. Athletes and people used to lower their heart rate, which might help you make better decisions. I don't know if you're calmer.
I think it's to find out if next time they need to give you it.
Yeah, maybe.
You've got a deficiency in this. You could really do some more.
4th place, and we can solve that. Not a problem.
It's interesting though, because like I'm sure that it's that somewhere on the official banned list of the IOC, Iron Brew shows up. So you could have actually been banned if you'd had an Iron Brew.
That's
why Scotland weren't there.
Yeah, weren't invited for that.
Exactly.
Very
And you know what? I'm still angry about that. But you know, we should go in and we should test ourselves and go, we'll do it. We'll do it clean if we have to. We'll have sugar free.
We'll do it clean. You shouldn't have to put that on your application. Do you know what? We'll happily come, but we'll do it. I will do it clean. So.
We'll do it your way. We'll do it your way. Fine. But yeah, speaking of FIFA, we'll start at the top then, shall we? Jack, it's a couple of weeks removed from it. You're still wearing the shirt. Are you still buzzing?
I'm still wearing my England trousers. The most comfy trousers I've ever owned. I'm wearing them right
Prove
now.
it.
I would
Prove
stand
it.
up.
No,
You want
prove
to-
it.
Oh, go on. I'll give you
Where are they? Look at that. He's got full
He is as well.
And he's got the kit in the background.
He's what he
Everything.
brought on at any point. I love it.
Look,
It's in case Si gets injured, isn't it?
I'm ready. I'll be honest, I went and had to pick up an Amazon delivery early, and I think the guy thought, what is this guy doing? Why is he in a full England kit
thought,
at
I've
3 in the
accidentally gone to St.
afternoon? Does he not have a job?
That's good.
But yeah, no, it was crazy. It's a bit weird coming back to normality now. I kind of, by the end of the week, I was kind of like, right, I need to be up again to play Football Manager for 9 hours straight. Which, sadly, the reality
was it
is
like
when
an
you do it on
endurance
YouTube-
test? So you're like
Well,
going for quite a long because you have to be up and ready and dressed. And did they give you makeup as well? We know that they
I
gave.
didn't get makeup.
I loved it.
I'm offered to give me some, but
I've got moisturiser now as well. I'll tell you what, they said to me, like everyone who go in and go, have you moisturised? I think, oh, sugar. No, I haven't. She goes, all right, we've got some. I think, oh, wonderful news. Here we go. That was the highlight. But now I'm trying to figure out what sort of, like, Kev's got his powder. I sort of want some. I'm about blusher, all of it now. I'm all in.
See, where I would have been if I was in your position, Ben, I would have been like a bit like going to the hairdressers, going like, right, you know what? I know it needs cutting, but I'm still going to have to do something with it before I get there. I don't want to turn up without having something in it. So I'd have already had moisturiser on and going, have you moisturised? No, this is my natural glow. I'm going to get double moisturiser and I'd come out like, yeah.
Can you be too moisturised? I don't know.
Things would be
start
slipping
drowning
off
at
my
that point.
face. It would be amazing.
No, that was. I'll do the first name drop of the episode. John Terry walked in while I was having my makeup done. And I thought, oh, I hope he just sees the after. That'd be good. If he just thinks this is my natural look, that'd be great. That was a surreal moment as much as anything else that happened that weekend or week.
But is it more surreal that he's seen you getting makeup done, or would it have been more surreal going the other way around and watching John Terry get his makeup done?
I don't know. I feel like he's probably had it done quite a lot. But the lady that did it, a lady called Layla, she also does it for the overlap. So, like, if you watch the overlap with the start, where Gary Neville's just getting some final touches, it's very regularly her. And that was the weirdest bit of the whole week, when you'd meet people from the production or from the behind the scenes that had done stuff with actual proper, not that I'm not a proper person, but you know what I'm saying, people that do this professionally week in, week out. It's a very cool experience. It's just like, oh, where are you off to next week? Oh, yeah, I'm going to Spain. It's like, of course you are. Yeah, what are you doing? I'm going to be sitting in my pants looking after a child. Sorry, my own child, to be clear. So, yeah. Very different experiences. But watching, you mentioned before if it was an endurance test for Jack. On day 3, it looked like it was.
It was long. Like, if you stream normally at home for 9 hours, it's pretty tiring. By the 5th hour, there's like, you have that little kind of wavering moment, and then like you get like a little second wind. I think my second wind was done by like midway through the second day. Yeah, it was the 9 hour days long. I mean, it was fun, but it did make me feel like I'm going to have 5 days off streaming after this. Like the what was it, 33 hours that
Yeah,
we had
30,
streaming. Actually, it
something
got longer in the later days because they ended up extending it to be 11 hours. It was like you can have optional breaks, which of course, when everyone looks around and goes, well, no one else is having the break, so we'll go too for even longer.
It was worse for Aaron and Matt. They had to stream for another day as well afterwards. It was torture for them.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was crazy. I must admit, I don't think within a single room there's ever been 60 seasons of Football Manager played by a group of people.
No, you say that, you've not watched Luke and his dad do simulations, mate. They fly through seasons like nobody's business, let me tell you. I've not asked you actually, Jack. Sorry, Tony, to sort of jump in and start asking Jack questions. It's just the relationship we've got now. Whereas, but that is actually my question: is did you start to look forward to the press conferences because it was a change of pace, or did you start to think, no, I've got to go and speak to Kev and Benji about what happened?
I'll be honest, I think it was more a case of I've just been talking for 10 hours straight and now I have to wait around for an hour and then be grilled. So, right, plan for every eventuality for the hour while slowly getting more and more tired and dreaming about the McDonald's that's waiting me at 10 p.m. when I finally get out the building.
Yeah.
I mean, the endurance test, though, is something that's seriously to be thought about. But it's not just for you guys. Like, there were people that were travelling through international time zones to get to this, so jet lag was kicking in. I mean, the boys who won it, Indonesia, landing, then getting straight in, and then going. I think they were saying that the flight out was when it finally hit them. Like they'd gone through the whole tournament, not realised they were jet lagged, then left and went, "Oh my god!" Like I'm done.
It was crazy. South Africa as well. Two of the teams that made the final arrived on the day of the tournament. Maybe that's where our prep went wrong. Maybe you meant to turn up.
You were too
halfway
prepared
through the day.
That was your problem.
But you did take meditation, not medication, meditation.
I wasn't part of the meditation, and I wonder if that's where it went wrong for me, really. I didn't get the same treatment. You know, there was clearly an A team and a B team by day 3. I was in the B team.
I didn't know we were calling you that. No, joking. That didn't happen.
No, Tom didn't do any meditation with me, so I'm going to ask Tom next time. Hopefully there's a next time. We'll be doing it in the corner.
It sounds like his allegiances were split. He was helping the other team.
Oh, look, we were a team of 4 from the beginning. They were using my tactic and my corner tactic. South Africa were using my corner tactic.
You wouldn't be saying that if they were bottom of the group.
No, that wasn't me.
Going, oh yeah, we were a collective. Because they got to the final 4. It's like
it's a team effort. You saw the huddle on stage. I was there on the main stage on Sunday.
No,
no one can take it away from me.
I mocked the huddle live. I thought no one else will do this. I will definitely make a comment on it. Because the thing is, I was doing some like actual analysis. I'd been asked a question, and I was answering the question, and it was just like, forget everything I've been asked. Is that work the space? A part of the huddle, despite his disgraceful performance. But actually, that was the funniest bit, having to describe, like, not even mediocrity, like above average, almost elite level football manager as pathetic. that happened every single press
I was like, I've had my best 2 seasons ever. I'm
just going, do you think you're going to be resigning, having set records?
So I've not lost in 2.5 years at home.
And I came in like it'd been an absolute relegation battle from minute 1. But we kind of had to play off the idea that because it was so close and everyone was so good, as a panel, we'd almost decided like, if it goes even a little bit badly, we have to compare it to that. And so everyone sort of everyone got pellers. Jack sort of copped for it the most because it was me on the other end of it. But it was it still good fun, Jack? I thought it was fun.
I loved it.
Okay.
I think by the last day I didn't have as good rebukes for your comments, but I think I was just done after 30 hours of streaming and just like, well, I'm out now. I don't want to be here. I think I gave the first no comment of the event on day 3. I was like, I've had enough of this.
That sent shockwaves around the press room, let me tell you.
Was there not any moment in time during the press conferences where you just went, the one on the bottom left, the one on the bottom left, the one on the bottom left, the one that just gets me out of this press conference? Just answer that. None of it really matters. Come on.
I can tell Tony doesn't do press conferences because I go bottom right every time and that works.
Oh, sorry,
no,
I mean
angry
bottom
ones.
left of my screen. Like, so that's maybe it's when you look on. That's what I would class as my left. Maybe it's the right. I don't know. Comment below whether it's the right or the left.
No, well, enjoy talking about this feature because in 2 weeks it probably won't be there. So.
It's going to be in the centre next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if they remove press conferences, people might cheer. There might be a.
I think that'd get me playing it.
Well, I think we're probably going to see, like, that's the one feature. Sorry to sort of move things on, Tony. I don't know what I'm doing.
No.
Again, just so used to play presenting now. I just don't know what to do.
Ben, you said before we even started recording, you went, you've listened to this show, so you know that structure isn't something that we have around here. So don't be surprised when it moves on before anyone's even ready for it. We'll come back to it if we have to. If we get half an idea, I'll fill in about Si's broken quad if I have to an hour into the show. I'll be like, Si, what happened actually? Tell us.
It might be the one, I was going to say, it might be the one element of Football Manager that is taken over by AI. Like quite heavily, And so actually, and like the idea that like doing press conferences over a number of years suddenly has an impact on your relationship with those journalists because they started to understand you or expect your answers to be a certain way. Will actually be kind of cool. I like it might actually lead one day. So there's a little box where it says further comment. Might actually be worthwhile to put further comment, like, or additional comment, which I don't know. I could see myself answering questions in quite an aggressive tone. So when I was gonna say, when you have to contact someone via like the chat box on like a website, and it's like, I really just want to get some money off my bill. They're like, you can ring. It's like, I'd rather not ring. I wonder if that's what it'll start to be like. They'll start to really get to know you. And then there'll be options towards the end of like, did you enjoy this press conference? And again, I like the idea of having some real toxic relationships with press officers.
Do you want one where it goes, would you recommend this press conference to a friend? Or like, and then have like a sort of a little star rating. Like the only thing with the text box though, everybody like, whenever people say, I'd love to be able to respond and write my own comments, what they mean is, I'd write like, get fucked. That's all I want to do. And then like, move on.
I've used it.
I think it does something. Does it not do something if you swear?
I think if you swear, it does do something there.
I think you get a suspension or something, don't you?
What I do is I screenshot various screens of Football Manager, then ask ChatGPT to, off the screenshots I feed it, to give me the answer for the press.
I've been having great fun with ChatGPT. I asked it all about me the other day, and it knew far too much in far too much detail. That was horrifying. It basically was mocking me, but I quite enjoyed the fact it knew me. So it was a very fine line.
Have you tried? Sorry, again off topic. Have you tried X / formerly known as Twitter's Grok AI that comes with Twitter Blue? I asked it about me because it can give you an overview of different profiles. Apparently, I cover space news. So
do you?
Apparently,
Brilliant.
it knew that Walk the Space is the parody account of me that does food memes.
Wow.
Apparently, I do space news now. So.
Good. Well, that's why I still follow. So,
yeah. Can't wait for next year's video. Then it'd be fantastic. Get you in the.
I'm going to talk about the spacewalk afterwards, in here.
Yeah, I want to see you do the intergalactic leagues. Get those downloaded on there. It'd be fantastic.
International Space Station management isn't in the game.
I just wonder if this is because England is sponsored by Mars and Jackson's just trying to get another space reference.
We're getting round. You've ruined it there. I was really working the long con.
Mate. I was there. I was with you.
It's fine. Keep going. We want to hear this Mars story. Come on, tell us.
No. It's just other brands of chocolate are available.
Sponsored by Mars. I don't want to get that wrong, but interesting. I loved like the way in which the whole. Sorry to go back to the tournament, Tony. Like the way the tournament set out such friendliness. There was, to be honest, that's the one thing I would change about it, Jack, is that you weren't.
In my feedback I've written, it was too nice.
It was too nice. Everyone was so friendly.
I literally have. I think it's because you were never competing against other people. You know when you have a network game against your mates and there's that feeling of them robbing points off you directly. It doesn't quite hit the same when you're watching someone get beaten by the AI. Like you can't quite cheer behind the AI. In my opinion, there should have been a mode where, like, for one game a year, you can press a button and enter the other person's game and manages the team they're about to play.
I do like the idea of being able to meddle. Yeah, I do like the idea that you'd be able to meddle with someone else's game at any one point, like a forced simulation.
No, I'm thinking, Ben, you're getting ready for your Benfica League Cup final. I press a button, suddenly I'm the Benfica manager for that one game.
But I know how that ends, though. But I did think, like, if it was harder, like we had Zealand there, right? Pressing, like, a Zealand emergency button. If every group had one button and they could choose to press the Zealand emergency button at any point, that would then they'd then sort of have to admit that Zealand's better at Football Manager than them. And it wasn't a room full of people that thought they were insignificantly good at Football Manager. There was a room full of people that thought they were brilliant at Football Manager. So, and provably so, I guess.
Maybe it should be they press a button, Ben, and they get to choose someone for you to go and meddle with for half an hour. Like the anti-Zealand.
That would be bit annoyed at that.
I think I'll tell you what, in the second season I drew one game in the league all year. It was the game where Ben was sat next to me.
Yeah, I sat next to Germany. They drew a game. They were winning everything. And I was just like, can I sit here? They drew. I went, do you know what, second leg of the World Cup, like World Club Championships, I'll leave you to it. And they won it comfortably when I walked away, so I was pretty happy for them. But yeah, it was all very nice.
It's additional pressure, though, isn't it? Like, getting people in the box and that, making them sit next to you. It's interesting.
What I'd love is you get to a cup final, Champions League cup final, the anthem starts playing. There's a blue light spotlight on them, and everyone in the whole hall knows that they're in the Champions League final.
Aaron
the crowd gathers around their desk. It'd be very
shouting a lot, trying to get people to. He was just trying to put the opposition off, and it was the only sort of gamemanship that I saw. I guess people thought the French team were, but it was mistranslated or misheard when they
Poland
said that they
were
hate you.
next to you, Jack, right?
Poland were loud, France were
Poland were
loud.
really loud.
Although I will say France's loudest cheer was when Indonesia lost the Champions League final, which did make me feel conflicted with emotions because the Indonesians were the nicest, quietest guys in the corner. They lost a game and are heartbroken. France celebrate them losing, then immediately play their Champions League final and win it, and they're just cheering in their faces. I'm thinking we've arrived here.
I love them. I love both the French guys.
Was Aaron trying to put other teams off, or was Aaron just being Aaron? And
I think he was just in his own world.
I was going to say, so you're giving him so much credit to the idea that anyone else
claimed
cares.
it. He claimed it. He said, "I've got to try and put them off."
I think the only person that was annoyed was second yellow card because whenever it happened, everyone would look at Matt like, "Are you going to do something about this, or were you going to do something about that?"
I remember turning to Matt on the last day. He goes, "I've got a bruise on my chest from where RDF keeps hitting me with his left hand whenever something happens in game."
That's so good. That's so good.
His eardrums
that
must
carries
have
on
been
forever.
I did like the mix as well, though, because it wasn't just, you mentioned before about you're talking this elite level football manager players. It's not just streamers and YouTubers. It was people through online qualifiers and international sort of qualifiers with their FAs or invites. And it's hard enough when you know you're doing a 9-hour stream, Jack, as you've said, and Ben, it's like it's a heavy duty event. But if you're not used to doing that, like you'll do it in your room playing it on your own, that's fine. But then to do it surrounded by other people, and then potentially, if you made it to the final, surrounded by other people and a live audience, that's a huge amount of pressure that you've got to deal with that you can't recreate any other way.
I feel like there was a build-up for people through the days. It's interesting, right? I chatted with some of the guys about this, like the South African guy, Zenzo. Like, he's never streamed before. He was like, actually, it was almost less pressure for them because there wasn't, and there were people watching, but they didn't feel a need to play to their audience. They could focus more on the game. And I think as more and more people saw, they're pulling ahead, or, they're ahead in the Brighton group, more people watch them, and it kind of builds up a little bit. Like you said, the live audience, I think, is a different thing. The setup was a bit weird because the competitors were kind of facing inwards. I wonder if you were able to kind of tunnel vision a little bit, because there definitely were times where I was sat, like, during the group stage bit, and I kind of just zoned everything out around Football Manager. I don't know how else to really explain it, except I've recently moved house, and there's times where I forget I've moved house because I'm in my setup playing Football Manager, and I almost expect to look away from the screen and be in my comfy place. So I do wonder, like, if it was possible to block things out. Obviously, when people start cheering, the screaming, then it kind of becomes a lot more difficult to avoid it. But yeah, no, for sure. It is interesting. Obviously, for England, they went with people who have a bit of a background in streaming. I think partially because they thought we want people to be able to handle the pressure and the scrutiny, especially as the host nation, and because it's in England, like, you are going to get a few extra pelters in the press conferences from your mates. Cheers, Ben. And I think that was kind of a conscious decision, whereas, there were other FAs where they did qualifiers, and some even did qualifiers, then the winner kind of either got paired up or inherently chose to go with someone who is a bit more of a showman, who can kind of maybe deal with the press conferences, deflect a little bit, be the person who gets more vocal. I think a good example of that was actually Poland. Poland had a qualifier, and the guy won it was quite quiet. Like, he wasn't too comfortable with English, to be fair to him. And by the second day, he was locked in the game, and that worked really well for them. And then their assistant went to all the press conferences and was just screaming at the top of his lungs every European game. And it was interesting how kind of over the course of a few days you saw, especially in pairings where it's people who maybe don't know each other going into the tournament, they get a bit more comfortable and kind of figure out what each of them is good at to then play to those strengths.
Yeah,
they have
Terry from Germany as well was very much like that, wasn't he? He was the pantomime villain almost.
Well, I behind the scenes, I had a little word with him. They won. I saw how good they were, and I went over and I said, like, you're absolutely crushing this. Like, you're probably going to go through play to it. Like, go in the press conference right now, like, it was coming up. I went, just act like you're going to win. Act like you are the team that everybody else has to beat. Because also, I think it, like, unsettled a few people to be like, oh, blimey, like, they are super confident. And Sven is his actual manager, was, like, really confident anyway, but, like, in a completely different, measured, calm, composed way. And Terry would just, like, ham it up. Like, he'd be sitting next to me in press conferences, watching other press conferences, and I just give him a nudge and go, here you go. Please ask a question. Please. But, like, he said to other groups, yes, you're doing well in your group. Do any of you think you can beat me? And there's just this look across all the other managers like, what's going on here? Why are Germany now antagonising us in press conferences? Why is one set of managers going after another set of managers? But I think for the tournament, like, and when they lost, I remember a few comments came through of like, oh, they seemed really upset to lose. I think, yeah, they're disappointed, but actually, like, speaking to them afterwards, they were absolutely cool. They were so cool with it. They were just like, do you know what? Yeah, get the game. Almost game's the game. These things happen. We loved the experience. It was fine, and that was the feeling you got from everybody. That everyone just loved being there. Everyone loved having the experience of being there. And I made the point, I think, on the broadcast a couple of times, was like, this is the closest these guys are ever going to get to being managers to this level. Like, if they don't enjoy this might not happen again. Like, as much as we want the whole spectacle to happen again, for some of the managers there, like, the opportunity won't come around again. This is the closest they're going to get. So they really have to grasp that and make something of it. And that's why Jack, for day one, made himself into a bit of like he was the original Germany of going like.
I'll tell you what. The
Go
day
on.
before the first press conferences when I arrived, we had to do loads of VT stuff. And one of the interviewers came to me and said, "We're not getting anything out of people. We need someone to be the villain." So there is loads of unaired footage, which I hope never sees the light of day, of me really, really talking crap.
I'll tell you what, I've got contacts at FIFA. I'll be
you
getting
know,
that
like the
footage,
Drive to Survive style interview where it's like a really dimmed out backdrop, quite an intimate scene. I had to do one of those kind of interviews, and there's a bit where it's like, "Have you got a message for your competitors?" And I'm doing like the face-to-face interview with the guy, and there's a camera there, and I go, "Can I talk to the camera for this bit?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "I'll see 3 of you on Sunday." I'm sat thinking, don't show that at any point.
Well, we did the chat like 2 weeks before, where I sort of said to you, "You're not going to win. So please play it up as much as you possibly can and be like the villain." You came in first press conference and just went, "Yeah, I'm going to win." I thought, okay, he's really going for it.
I said I don't see any
Perfect.
I don't see any competitors to my left. Indonesia hadn't arrived, so wasn't wrong.
Fair cop.
Wasn't wrong.
Fair cop. I've not publicly apologised to you for what I did to you on the day that they did arrive. So, and you can see your face now. You're looking unnerved. But you know
I
what
can't remember what you did. I'll be honest.
They'd won the quadruple, and I knew, and you didn't know.
He
And I
came
came
over
over
to
and I
me.
went, "Have you heard about Indonesia?" And Jack just went, "No." I went, "They've won the quadruple," and just walked off. And I just saw your face go, "My chances have gone."
I think I'd finished streaming at that point.
You
I
had.
feel
You,
like,
weren't even live. And I was
you know
going
the
for it
Ralph Wiggum meme where it's like you can see the moment his heart snapped in half. If it had been on stream, we would have been going frame by frame for that moment.
I went back to Chelsea. Will and Kevin just went, "I think I made Jack cry." I kind of felt really bad about it.
I don't think I was even sad. It was more shock because
we were
they've been the
shocked.
least noisy through the whole day.
We couldn't believe it either. They were such an... And I've watched all, like... We were talking about before about some of the press stuff they've done, post it. They seem really... Like, in their native language, they seem really outgoing, like really chatty people, really happy to talk about their experience. But on the days they got there, especially arriving late, they sort of went so under the radar. And it came to us, and we were a bit like, "They've done what?" Like, we didn't believe it. We went over like... I went, "Have we won everything?" They just went, "Yeah, we've won everything." It's like... I'm telling Jack. I have to tell Jack.
The point where I knew they were going to win the whole thing wasn't even on the last day. It was the day before the last day. Final season 3. 2 hours into the session, they'd just gone for lunch at like 10 a.m. I was like, it's over, isn't it? They're chilling. I'm stressed about getting to the end of the season.
That's so true. We could tell he was doing well, but he wasn't there. We were like, these people are not bothered. There's some people really engrossed in it. It's like, wait, Germany aren't here. We've no, like, Aaron and Matt have gone for a break. It's like everyone's feeling pretty comfortable right now. Remember, Turkey went as well. It was just like, okay, everyone in contention is taking breaks. Everyone not in contention is like got a notepad scribbled with stuff on it. So it was a great experience. So fun.
Do you think? Would you change the challenge? Would you make it harder?
I have some ideas that I think would work pretty well. I'd add a day, or get rid of the pre-season day that we did, where we did a 3 hours. I'd probably do the 3 seasons in 3 days. I know it was difficult for people, and I kind of say, "Oh, it was so tiring," but actually, I think it was a pretty good test of Football Manager. But I'd love to have a day dedicated to, say, 3 scenarios. I've kind of spitballed this idea before, that you have a 5-hour session where it's a bottom at Christmas challenge. You give everyone the same save game bottom at Christmas. Maybe this is when you've whittled it down to, say, 16 or 8 competitors. And you say to all of them, "Here's an identical save. You get a point per point you earn. If you avoid relegation, you get 10 points. If you do both those things, or no, not both those things. If you choose to make no transfers in January, whatever points you do earn are doubled." So you've got the incentive of, do I go for the full-on bob at Christmas and try and do it without kind of making any transfers? Because I think one of the issues was, like, Germany went flawless point scoring-wise. And I think Football Manager is a game with a bit of momentum, right? We've all been in that situation where you feel like you get a save game going. I'm going to hurt you a bit here, Tony, and I'm sorry. And you feel a bit unsackable the further into the future you get with it. And, like, it can't go wrong. And I think throwing people into more uncomfortable situations with a bit of jeopardy, especially if you're a good Football Manager player, unless you've done a bottom at Christmas challenge, you've probably never faced a situation where it's like a squad that's not really your own that you're having to fix midway through a year. I think you could do a challenge where you go, right, you're in a cup semi-final at the end of the year, but you've got suspensions for the semi-final and the final to key players win the tournament. And you can kind of see how different people take different tactical approaches. You could set it up in such a way where the suspensions dictate that maybe certain, I hate to use the word, meta formations aren't as like easy to do. Or if you're going to go down that route, you've got to play some players out of position to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think you can almost do 3 challenges in 3 sessions. And because it's identical for everyone, you get a really good head-to-head comparison for analysis of what's going on. Because I don't know if Ben will agree with this, but by kind of season 3 of each club, like each save game was fairly unique and harder to kind of compare versus the first season where everyone had no transfers for the first year. Yeah. And I do think for like being like, oh, what did this guy do in this situation versus what did this other team do? That like some kind of scenario play where you give people, I describe them as Football Manager escape rooms. And you get points for them. I think that could be like a really interesting kind of dynamic to really test people in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, I think from a broadcast perspective, the idea of having 20 different managers take on that bottom, like imagine you do like a 10 games at the end of the season, you take the club that's bottom, and every single person, because some of them get sacked probably at the very end, and it's like, wow, that's the end of your tournament. The idea of covering that across the whole room, it would take maybe like 3-4 hours to do. And you're covering every little moment that goes across. Like you think of it from a broadcast perspective, that'd be really good. I actually think format-wise, you didn't need to do too much to change it. Like the system they had was pretty good. Me and Jack and a few others actually were very skeptical pre-tournament of like, it's going to work. And I think most people that have played Football Manager, at least competitively or even in single-player stage, probably looked at this and thought, 9 hours isn't a lot of time, and it's 3 days, and then there's a draft mid at the end. And it's like, I hope they've concluded how this might actually conclude. And we did have like some instances on the final day where some of the league stages were kind of dead rubbers a little bit and there wasn't a huge amount going on. But we kind of knew that from a broadcast perspective. It was like, well, we're just going to focus on the stuff that is interesting. Aaron's group specifically was actually 4 of them. Like Peru lost quite early on. Had Peru won, you can have 4 teams battling for that one spot. And it even came down to the fact that Aaron didn't win the Champions League final, but then I think it was Malaysia, lost their final. And suddenly Aaron's through and it's like the room lit up all of a sudden, not even at their station. It was just like, I think they cut a camera to it. It was part of the broadcast. It worked really well.
Can I just say, there's a great story with Malaysia where they always had someone in the player lounge on a laptop. And we were like, what is this person doing? Like, we're all really paranoid. This person, they were always just in the corner on a laptop. And whenever Malaysia had a big game, they'd come down and stand behind them and just watch the game. And we were so confused. I asked them in the after party, I was like, what was this person doing? And they're like, well, besides our manager, none of us knew anything about Football Manager, so he was just watching all the other streams in our group, working out what everyone else was doing and feeding back. Amazing. So Malaysia had a designated stream sniper
in the crowd. I love that.
Well, what you could do with that then, and again, let's look at this in terms of the broadcast as well. Like Jack, you mentioned this bottom of Christmas. I love this challenge, by the way. It's a challenge I've done before, and it plays to my like sort of way I play Football Manager in terms of how I tell stories. And I always go back to the story of when I first started streaming, and it was a raid that you gave me, Jack, when I was pretty brand new to it. And we joined, and we had 5 games left to play to stay in the division. And you're saying there, like, if everyone is pretty much getting flawless seasons, then there's nothing to really talk about. Whereas if you've got 10 teams have already secured their safety, it's going to be fine, they're walking towards mid-table. If you've got 10 teams who are battling towards the last couple of days and they're still not safe, that's when it really turns into that broadcast. You're ramping the atmosphere up, the pressure up, and you can even get little moments, which we saw on the stream of, there's been a goal in another game and it means so much. And it's not what's happening on the stream itself and on that game that the managers are playing. It's what's happening within that universe at the same time that dictates the outcome, rather than they've won and their goal difference is higher than the other one, so they've won. And it just creates a bit more drama.
Trying to make it competitive is like the ultimate issue, actually, because Football Manager at its core is not a competitive game versus other humans. And so even with draft mode, like if you take that away and you think about this like single save way of doing things and everyone playing that single save way of doing things, trying to create story out of that is actually quite difficult, and trying to keep coverage on all of that is quite difficult. Like the job that Z did, he was fortunate to a degree that he had 20 streams. He's always going to find something. Something's always going on, but I actually think that was maybe the one production element that you look at and think, do you know what this tournament really could have done with is not having press conferences with very little context, and having someone, if you didn't watch these streams, you're probably thinking, why are they being asked this question? What happened in their group? And you probably need to go to the showdown format, or equally the format that we had on the final day, where there's Spencer and there's the four of us, each focusing on a different group. But I had Group A in that circumstance, and Turkey finished before we started the broadcast. It's like, well, not really much to watch here, guys. They're kind of finished. But actually having that every day, and having a team of 4 people, maybe alongside a Zealand or whoever, being able to focus on everything that goes on for each group. You've got like a specialist of each group, and people being able to like have a real understanding with league tables and graphics. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's a cost to that, and it was already an event that cost a lot of money. But still, if you're trying to put on a broadcast that people can understand and watch it from anywhere and dip in and dip out and understand it, like that's the one thing that you couldn't do. You couldn't dip in for like 20 minutes, understand what was going on across the entire tournament, and come back to it 2 hours later. Like, you kind of had to be a bridge of all of it, or at least hope that Jack knew what the other people in this group
I was going to
were
say,
doing.
even in my context, when I was competing, I didn't always know what score we were on during the day, because you kind of have this mindset in a weird way, because you couldn't affect what anyone else was doing. It wasn't like the daily challenges, for example, where it was like score a certain amount of goals with a youth player. It wasn't a case of whoever gets the most goals with a youth player gets a certain amount of points. So you didn't end up being too invested in the other team stuff. Like, you'd hear whispers, they're doing not sure, they probably win a cup final or whatever. One of the bits of feedback I've given is I'd love it if there was a screen on the front of every single desk in the horseshoe shape we're in that just shows the live score in the competition that everyone is playing in. So I can glance over at France, go, oh, they're a goal behind in a cup final kind of thing. I might go over there and have but also I feel like stuff like that just to kind of help keep it linked. Because as a competitor, there was definitely times where I didn't know what was going on in the other groups. Just started going, we're having the best season ever, but like,
what does it mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of the question. I think.
And also, what points does it mean? There was kind of a point where you realise, because the points, you're not competing with other people for the same points. It's just about ticking off every checkbox you can. Actually, there is no point in being too concerned about other people's stuff. I think on day 1, I was telling myself that. By day 2, I was really believing that because of what had happened with the Indonesia stuff as well.
Yeah. We actually, as a production team, had access to, like, I think I showed it to you maybe on the final day. We had like a complete comparison, so you'd be able to see someone's top transfer they'd made, their biggest sale, their total transfer spend, their win percentage. Like, we had access to that, but viewers at home didn't. So it was a little bit like, oh, this is great that we've got it, but it'd be really nice if everyone else could see this as well, to the level of detail that we had it at. But like, all in all, like, and I've said this on a few different things I've done actually, is that it's mad that despite no one in production really playing or knowing about Football Manager, how good the entire event was. Like,
I was going to say, it sounds like we're being really critical.
Yeah, it's
here,
crazy.
We are nitpicking because I think there's such a good foundation there.
Yeah, and Kev said it on last week's pod that you did, that it's like, it's the greatest thing he's done in his professional career. And he's had a lot more years than me. So the fact that he's like, he feels that way about it, and I also feel that way about it. I don't know how Jack felt about it, but like, it was an incredible spectacle to be a part of. And I remember getting the invite thinking, wow, I'm still relevant enough. Like, it's a good job I know Spencer, I'll be honest, because I'm pretty sure it was his recommendation, and then they'd watched and spoken to me, and obviously then concluded, you know what, yeah, this is the right person for it. But and similar to Kev, that opening day when I'm there, I'm very nervous. I'm thinking, I'm not representing me here. I'm representing what I've been doing for 10 years, and I better be bloody good at it. Otherwise, people are going to go, why isn't this person there? Why isn't Zealand doing that? And I think Kev said it best. And we agreed it on site as well. The role that Jack and Tom had, the role that RDF and Matt had, the role that Z had that day, the role that Clates had, the role that me and Kev had, everyone was in their perfect position. Like, it made perfect sense to why those people were where they were. And it worked really well. The dynamic between me and Kev worked really well. I thought Statman Dave and Will Brazier were brilliant. Again, not a part of our community, not been part of any community events we've done before, but slotted in straight away. And the rapport that we had, and I'd done a few little bits with Spencer, and obviously Spencer and Kev had worked together on Streamer Showdowns. And there's a little bit of crossover. Spencer and Will had worked together, Dave and Spencer. So the fact that all worked really well. And then those 5 people, and Chelsea Kavakis, who is a CBS presenter who works and lives in New York, and comes in and just goes, so what is this? But that was a great reset for everyone. And I think it was probably helpful for some of the managers as well, that she came in very pure, asking, and we basically just said to her, everything you know about football, everything you've ever learned about football, just apply it to this game. And because of the nature of the game, you'll be fine. And as soon as we said that to her, and we said that to Jimmy Ford Hasselbank and Sam Allardyce and John Terry, they all relaxed. They were like, oh, this is just what I know then. Like, don't worry about it. And so they were all really good. And she specifically was so willing and so wanting to know what she should ask, how she should ask it, almost like what are they then going to say as a result of that? And so yeah, we had a really great team of people. But I felt a lot of, again, day one, I felt a lot of pressure to be like, this better be good. I've not done that sort of stuff before. I'd not been on camera to that degree before. Hopefully they thought I did a good job, because I really want to do it again. But yeah, it was an amazing experience to be a part of, and also like rooting for Jack and rooting for Aaron and those guys, even though I knew if it came to a press conference, I was going to get him. but they also loved that. Like, I'd come off broadcasts or come off press conferences, and there was a little bit of apprehension of like, are these going to be interesting? Are people going to love this? And producers would come to me and go, love what you did with the England guy.
I will say, I was a bit like, when I saw when we first walked into the room, we had to be like the draw of the teams, and there was a press conference.
I was so hot. I was really warm.
I saw that. I was like, this is amazing. God, I hope they get the tone right. Otherwise, this could turn really cringe really quickly with press conferences, especially when you're question people who aren't streamers and are just normal Football Manager players.
And I mentioned this on the show last week as well, saying to Kev, because Kev was like, "Oh, I've been built for this. I've been talking to people online for like 10 years." I was like, "Yeah, but it's not just talking to people online for 10 years. It's that next level of actual human performance where you're performing in front of people. It's a completely different skill. Like, you can be amazing behind a camera, but then when you step out into the real world, it's like, what's that thing? Like, everyone who does it, like I used to say on stage, if like someone heckled and it was really rubbish, I'm like, you know what? It's not as easy as I make this look, is it? Like, it's that sort of thing. Like, it's not. Like, if you're good at it, it looks easy, but those nerves, absolutely. Like, I was watching it and I was getting the nerves, like re-watching it, going like, God, yeah. Like, even I would be like, oh, okay, let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, but then by the point of day 4, which was the Saturday, and like the live element of it that went on for a few hours, and then obviously the studio audience when you guys turned up as well, I was so calm. Like, when I met you that day, I didn't, and at no point was I like, oh my God, this is going to be really nerve-wracking. Actually, I loved it. I was like, you know what, this is what I've been working 10 years for. This is actually what I've been wanting this to be like. And I felt so at ease, like, for that whole show. At no point did I feel nervous, and the flow that we had like together as a group was ridiculous. There was no point of like pausing or looking at one another and going, is it you, is it me? Like, the whole week it was like that. And
the thing I liked about it wasn't like a traditional esport where you have like 2 casters, a colour caster and a play-by-play.
Yeah.
It was like a Soccer Saturday panel, like the vibe, and I think that made it work way better for Football Manager. I think it could have been too serious. I was worried that when it came to like draft mode and the matches, there was going to be like the full-on proper play-by-play colour commentary, but actually it was just more of the same, and that worked quite well.
Yeah, I sort of took that on though. I sort of took on the mantle of like, okay, I'll do some serious commentary and I'll just throw it off to whoever needs to comment like as we go. We never discussed that. It wasn't like, oh yeah, Ben, you do that because obviously you've done it forever, you've done it for a living. And I think I'm slightly more comfortable at Kev at doing that. And I sort of played the middle person of like, well, if I need to be more serious, I'll be more serious and I'll talk about the tactical element. If I need to make a joke about Kev or Jack or whoever, I'll play that element as well. And so I was a little bit of a hybrid person, whereas Kev was very much, and you had him on the podcast last week and he's just like this. This is how I do things. This is how things should be done. Yeah. And so like, but actually like that works really well for everyone else to then play in and around that. So like, you had Will be a bit irreverent, you had Dave focus on the tactical stuff, and it allowed me and Spencer to sort of play off all of that. And so yeah, it worked really nicely. And I say the commentary style of it, again, wasn't discussed. And but I don't know if everyone remembers who watched it. The analysis that John Terry and Statman Dave did about corners was like my favourite bit of the whole show. It didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like they've got John Terry in and he's talking about corners. Like, it felt like this is a major part of Football Manager. He's got a really like nice discussion point to it. Dave's doing a really good job of finding that middle ground of the game and real life. And it just, I'm a bit in disbelief. As like, I can't believe it all worked as well as it worked, but it was so great.
I went into it. Me, Ben, and Kev had a sit down a couple of weeks before where we'd kind of had some details handed to us about our different roles, and I was just like, so what do you guys think then? And we were all a bit like, this seems mental. Like, I was like, I've just got the schedule through where it says we're streaming for 9 hours a day with these hour-long breaks. Like, well. What is this? And I remember Ben just going to me, you're screwed, mate. Like, this is impossible. And I think it was at a point...
I was loving it, Jack, until I got my call time on the day I arrived of 7:30, and I thought, that's not actually what I thought was going to be happening. I thought I'd be walking in at 6:30, asking some questions and going home for some dinner.
There was some votes that came to the players ahead of the tournament, like, do you want a tribute mask in on or off? And I genuinely think if a tribute masking had been on, no one would have finished their seasons in time because of like how much longer it would have taken just waiting for scout reports and stuff.
But barely any managers actually struggled with the time. That was the bit that was really interesting. I think there's one or two that really struggled, but many managers
it's weird, right? Because you say that, but for some reason we still got 2 hours added on for the second and third, like of the 9-hour days.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know where that came from.
It just happened.
I don't know the reason. All I know is it's in my feedback. Don't change the times, because me and Tom rushed through things. We're like, right, first season, least points on offer. Get as much time for that postseason as possible. And our like cut-off time was a week before the first game of the year. We turned up for the second day. It's like, by the way, you've got 11 hours today. And it's like, well, now people have 2 more hours for that first week if they want to get more transfers done. Like you said, I think the 9 hours worked really well. I think the one catch was the Japan group, because with the Asian Champions League running like halfway into the 4th season in Japan, which hadn't been factored for. But there was a few little things like that, but they're just learnings, right?
Yeah,
where
can't really help it.
It won't happen next time.
Aaron was furious about that extended time because he'd been trying to make sure he got through every game, and the other teams were like falling behind and holidaying.
Well, the Dynamo team had the least amount of games. Like Sporting and Brighton, I think, had the most games. I mean, especially Brighton, you can't really sim as many of the league games. I say that. Was it the Spanish team that finished in like 5 hours one of the days?
They were cruising. But I think Germany simulated every single league game, which ultimately I think not really what you want.
It hits a point like that, isn't it, with Japan? And like you said, it's not what you want. We've given loads of feedback. Like one of the things I've said is you need to like mandate a certain way of presenting matches. It's like, hey, if it's a cup final, you need to be on key highlights, and we'll give you a bit of time back for that.
Yeah, Aaron, if you're listening to this back, because we played the Champions League final, and he's going
in text only. First ever Champions League final played in text only.
I'm like, can we get Chelsea to turn it on, to flick it on, like key highlights here? Because I understand the superstition, but I'm not really here to watch replays of Mbappe scoring.
My favourite thing about Aaron was replays for his own goals, but not the opposition. So
you didn't know anything. So we're watching it going, well, I think there's been a goal there for PSG, but we've got no physical evidence of it other than a little bit of text.
But there's so many little things like that, like, when the next one happens, if the next one happens, like, they're just things that weren't accounted for.
Jack, that's what I'm saying.
It's all good, isn't it? Because it genuinely has felt like, and we are still, by the time this comes out, we'll be, 3 weeks removed, nearly 4 weeks removed from the tournament, and everyone's still talking so passionately about it. It proves that the draft mode, the versus mode, when it's done well, is still a much loved part of FM. And we know it's not in the brand new release from day one of FM 25. Like, is that part of, like, after an event like that, is there part of you that was a little bit like, oh, I just wanted to keep doing more of this? Like, it's sort of like rekindle. I mean, Jack, I know you've been in Indonesian drafts servers since.
I'm locked into the Indonesian scene now.
We'll talk a lot more about this in Patreon, but keep it high level as to where we are. But like, yeah, like where's you? Has it rekindled that love? Because
we've been having some chats, haven't we, Ben, about a few different
it's brought me back. So I mean, I've been away for 10 months, not done any content of any kind, and I mean, it's literally the love and I got a lot of love from the community, actually, including some of you guys here as well. And so that is always nice to hear. And I've been very built into something else. And I was just like, do you know what? Actually, I basically analysed myself. I did a scout report on myself and basically went, do you know what? Actually, you started to care too much about the game. Stop caring like that. And that's not what anyone's ever watched me for. To watch me be good at Football Manager, and equally being part of an environment where everyone else had to be good and I didn't, made me realise that I can just do that as my content again. I don't have to be the person that's the best at the game, because that's not why anyone's watching. And so, yeah, for me. But yeah, Jack's right. We've had a lot of conversations. I really want to announce something that's like, I want to give you an exclusive, Tony, but I know there's someone in the world that will hate me if I do it, but I really want to do it anyway.
I think you might have said too
we
much.
We can cut it.
There.
We got a week to cut it.
No,
so,
it's
yeah,
fine. I'll take that. I'll take the aggressive nature. In October, there will be an FM Streamer Showdown. Yeah.
Exclusive.
You can have that as an exclusive.
This is like how Adrian Newey's move got, like, the high performance podcast had the interview with him ahead of time that dropped. And
I just know that this is also a bit of an announcement, that when Matt Nerdphonic watches this podcast, it might be off. Because I've mentioned it. But yeah, there's been a lot of discussion in the last few days. Things are coming together. It's looking very likely that we'll be seeing you all in October for another showdown. So yeah.
That's very exciting.
A final goodbye to draft mode for a bit.
Well, I'm already sat thinking, how do we get draft mode working with FM25 in its current form?
Jack, we should talk no more about that. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think for a showdown, you could do it anyway.
In theory.
No?
Yeah.
Yes,
I wouldn't say
FM25
anymore.
database working
Yeah.
in draft mode in FM24.
Anyway. Stop talking. I'm already in trouble. I'm already really in trouble. So no more talking. No more talking.
Oh well, okay. Well, then that's big news. We weren't expecting to be getting that. So okay. So if of course Matt Nerdphonic does now know about this, that wasn't even mentioned on the podcast, so it's been cut out and redacted. But yeah, no, looking forward to that. Absolutely. So that probably covers draft mode. Then we'll talk about that going forward once that's all out into the ether. I guess if we talk about 25, then let's talk about 25. We know that the draft's not in it. We know that we've gone through what's not in it, right? Okay, there's loads of bits we know that's not in it. Okay, international management, shouting, probably loads of other stuff as well that I've already forgotten.
Chalkboard,
draft mode, chalkboard. Chalkboard's not even any of the other versions anyway. No one uses it. What are we looking for there? What are we expecting? Like, we know it's delayed, but is it a good thing? I'm going to take that as a good thing that's delayed, but then I don't rely on YouTube revenue.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've talked about this before, but when I quit my job to go and do YouTube, one of the considerations was I'm locked into Football Manager content. There will be a Football Manager every year. It's not like I'm attaching myself to the flavour of the month FPS. It's not like I'm a Fortnite or an Apex Legends streamer who at some point in a few years' time is going to have to go, crap, I have to find the next thing to latch onto. Football Manager should last forever, and I'm sure it will do. This is the first year where I'm kind of looking at it going, I didn't fit. This wasn't like on my radar as like a possibility. That's not to say it'll be a disastrous thing, but I think I'm one of these people who likes to hope for the best, prepare for the worst. It's kind of like the mantra I have. And whilst I know that even if the game isn't perfect, I can make content around it, the more stuff they announce and as the delays come out, there is part of you that wonders, like, how bad is it? Because there's times where Football Managers launch with questionable things, not quite ready. I think of J-League as an example. This year, there's been some pretty stinky match engines released at launch sometimes. And it's like the fact that stuff like international management is getting cut now. Obviously, I've talked about this, but in PR, there's basically two different ways you approach PR in video games. There's the approach where you try and sandwich the bad news between good news. So you have like, we have a new match engine. By the way, there's no international management and we've removed shouts and all this other stuff. But there's also this cool stuff. Or there's the PR approach where you go, just get all the bad news out of the way as early as you can. So that discourse happens in isolation. And then it's only like upwards from there with all the good news one after the other to build up momentum. My concern is, as someone who worked a lot in games marketing, that they're going to be starting from such a low point because of some of the stuff that's been removed, that then getting that momentum rolling and getting back to where they want to be is going to be trickier. And I know it's, you look at some of the stuff that's been announced, they kind of have the numbers around international management and like, it's 6% or 7% or however many percent it was, people who play it. There's part of me that just feels like if this is the stuff they're completely gutting out, where else are their corners being cut in stuff they've maybe not announced yet? And maybe that's like a really facetious attitude to have. But I feel like for Sports Interactive, the messaging's got to be really careful because they've kind of gone out with FM24 and said it's the most complete edition ever. It's our love, it's our final goodbye, our last dance with Football Manager in its current form. We're going to be starting from like a new level. And we still don't really know how low that new level is. Like, it's going to be a step down this year. We're going to lose some stuff, but it's the ceiling that is now then above it that it can then reach because of a new foundation being laid down. It's going to be very interesting to see how they market and kind of communicate that messaging, because you don't want to tell people the messaging of this year's a step down, we're trying to calibrate your expectations, because then people go, well, I don't buy the game every year normally anyway, so I'm just going to stick with 24.
Well, I guess this is part of the problem that came out in the announcement when FM24 was announced. Was, all right, FM24 is coming, but hey, by the way, FM25 is coming out as well, and it's going to be different, it's going to be on Unity, and then like loads of people like, well, I'll just wait for FM25 then. Like, screw FM24. There's a better one on the horizons. And I kind of want to have the conversation with the people who did that and went, What did you do this year? Did you try 24?
I think they lied,
Because
Tony. Based
you
on
might be.
the people that played 24, I think they lied and bought it anyway or played it anyway.
Yeah.
Just to be
Yeah.
the
They've
biggest
all got it
football
through
manager
Epic
ever,
Games now. That Epic Games thing is such a weird timing with all this discourse. Because part of me's like, does this mean they've got so much faith in 25 they want people to get 24, go, this is a good entryway, see all the new stuff with FM25 and think it's worth sacrificing a few things for the leaps forward in other areas? Or was the Epic deal negotiated 6 months ago and they're now looking at it now going, yeah, this is actually really bad for us because there's now a big install base on the old game and people feel less pressure now to move on to the new one?
I think Kev said last week that he thinks the game FM25 has been designed for him, right? Yeah. I think the announcements have been timed around me because they've gone, he's in quite a good mood. So if there's ever a time to release bad news, because Ben of 18 months ago, there would have been 4 videos by now, and it would have been bad. And there would have been roundtables planned. Me, Loki, Jack, Kev, Z would have been on this. But they've sort of gone, you know what, we'll just announce it all. He's in a good mood. What could possibly go wrong? We saw him last week. He was okay. It's interesting. So I think there's definitely a school of thought that there's a lot of panic going on, which I feel is relatively unnecessary. Football Manager is people forget, Football Manager is one of the most detailed games ever created. And so even with them removing big features and weight, like, it's not going to be a major impact. Like international football, I think is the worst one. That's the most egregious one of like, you're removing this because it's been bad for years. This is not now an oversight of like, oh, actually we can't put it in. You never put the work into international management. You're now paying for it, and now you're getting criticised for it. And in my opinion, you're getting rightly criticised for it not being in there.
It's mad that it's coming in like that. Well, it's coming out the year that women's football's coming in.
Worst time ever
and
to
it's
have it
mad.
in as well.
They talked in that first blog post, didn't they, about the mantra of if we could do stuff again, what would we do differently and rebuild from the ground up? And it feels a bit disingenuous to me that clearly they had a discussion around international management and decided that wasn't the case, and they were just going to keep it in its current form. And now they've looked around and gone, crap, we can't even do it in its current form. Let's just use that argument and apply it to the international management.
Well, Si, it takes out loads of like challenges that people love. I mean, we were all joking on. Again, we mentioned before we hit record that Jack had made memes about San Marino winning the first game for like 20 years. The San Marino challenge, of course, is very famous. Let's all do San Marino. Oh, we can't. Andorra, that's a challenge. The Builder Nations, people love to add the international teams into Builder Nation saves. You've just had the FIFA E World Cup, and then all of a sudden you go, yeah, but let's not really play with any of the international teams. Like, can you do it amongst yourselves, sort of club level, possibly? I mean, Si.
It's strange. Like, I mean, I'm someone who has been playing international management. I did the World Cup challenge this year. I tried to win, the Euros. Sorry, try to win the Euros with 24 teams, isn't it? And then I also did like other parts with international football. Like you said, there was the World Cup. We're on the back of a Euros. People are looking at who the next England manager is going to be and thinking, oh, I mean, this would be a fun time to start a save as an England manager, right? Just picking up where Southgate leaves off, and can you take England finally to that next level? That would be a perfect starting point for an England save. And it's they've just made these connections with it might be eFIFA, and I don't know how although Infantino is retweeting the games. Like,
eFIFA is the
right?
esports brand of FIFA. It is very when
Sisters
Second Yellow Card and I did our videos, they were recorded at the FIFA headquarters.
Yeah. So they've made all these connections, and then they're like, no international. And I think it does need as someone who's been playing international though, I'm kind of glad. Like, I just made it so I started the tournament on the day the tournament started. Well, I did the squad selection. I missed all the friendlies and everything else you would do with a long-term save, and just started with the tournament and finished the tournament, and then was done.
My concern with it mainly is that you've got women's football in the game this year. International football is so heavily ingrained within women's football. It's like you give with one hand and you take away with the other.
It's almost like a bigger element than the club football.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, right, okay, so you've got this fantastic thing where women's football's in, but you can't quite play it at the detail that it should be, and it should be given that sort of like that proper validity.
I think, that by the way is the bit. I don't think anyone's gonna be that bothered about not being able to start a save with an international club, but being 4 years in and being offered the American national women's job, like at the same time, that'd be such a cool crossover that you never normally get, but Football Manager would enable, and he's not enabling. The one thing I really hate people saying is, well, it's terrible anyway, so who cares if it's going out? Yeah, that's also their fault though. So like everyone using that again is a bit of a cop out. But the one thing that's now been forgotten about is they've just got the Premier League license. And so for the first time ever, the game is going to be marketed in a completely different way. And so if the transfers are still good and the scouting's still good and the tactics are still good and the UI is actually really like optimized and feels really great, and I know Jack's pessimistic towards that, but if those things, like if they're doing away with like these 8, there's a list of 8 going around, isn't there, of like things that aren't included. If that list of 8 aren't there, then would I have taken, and we talked about this 2 years ago, Jack, will we take a year which feels a little undercooked to actually have a tastier meal? Right, by the end of it. I mean, maybe we will do. And so if the engine is what we would hope it to be, if it graphically looks superior
I was going to say, if you get some fancy Premier League lineup graphics that are like a step above the Champions League ones we've had for the last few years, you have the lineups come on screen with the Premier League graphics.
Imagine they have the actual Premier League graphics.
We mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, and Aaron was like, there isn't a Premier League anthem. I was like, there is.
No. You're going to hear it again and again and again.
I do think the licensing thing is going to be interesting with women's football as well. We've not really seen any discussion around this. As far as I'm aware, Sports Interactive have not announced any license with any women's leagues yet. So if women's football comes into the game this year with no international management and no licensed leagues,
there must be
as someone who really wants to see women's football do well and be popular in the game, part of me is like, that's just
give it a chance.
I don't like right. It's exactly like it's like you're just putting it in the game this year because you said it had to be in the game this year. I mean, that's a bit of a damning indictment. And look, I'll probably get humble pie and I'll announce a load of stuff. But like, as we get closer to midnight and the release, it's like, is there going to be some announcements soon? I assume that they are working with some. It'd be mental if they didn't. But like,
if they were going to make some announcement, right? We'll go in order, right? Si, I'm going to come to you first, then Ben, then Jack. Okay. If they were to announce something, presumably that's not happened in the last week since we've recorded this and we've now gone live and everyone's going, why did they not talk about this bit? Like, what would you want announced that would take away some of the heat that's currently on FM25?
The next thing, I think it has to be the match engine. Like they have to show something in match and what it graphically looks like, because that's the thing that people have been so critical of. And I know it's not the be all and end all, but if people could just see the play of the game, and I think that might be, the big game changer, and people go, oh, this actually looks like a much more modern game, not a game that was 30 years old.
What's going to terrify me is if they don't lead with that, because then now it's think, if they've not got a nice eye candy to show the match engine they've been bigging up in a new engine, what does it look like? And they've got to show it at some point. And if we get 3 feature reveals in and we've not been shown the match engine, that is like, I'm ringing like the doomsday bell thinking we are in trouble here.
I'm worried about the UI. Like, I don't mind the UI from the screenshots we saw, and I don't mind the idea that it's being simplified and being made to make sense, because things are behind other screens and everywhere at the minute, and everyone's installing a skin. So if they're rethinking that, I don't get the idea that it's made to look. I mean, I understand people say, oh, it's made to look like mobile or an iPad app. Well, fine. I mean, no iPad. These things are designed for their accessibility and for how intuitive they are. So why is that a bad thing? People.
Well, on that though, that looked like screenshots that Jack sent me 8 years ago. Like Jack would make stuff like the skin related stuff and send me that level of detail 8 years ago and go, this is what it could look like, and I go, oh, that's cool. And so like the screenshots that have been announced, I'm sort of discounting because, as you say, it looks like it's made for tablet. Like,
it's you need to interact with user interface to get a feel for it.
I've got no idea if it's going to be better or not. Their job is to make sure it absolutely is better. Like, I think what's happening at the moment, and we're talking about all the things that we want to be there and aren't there, right? They're just putting a lot of pressure on themselves right now. And so at some point,
by piling out all that bad news, we're now start thinking there's good news has got to come eventually. Like, how good is it?
But traditionally, sorry, Tony. Traditionally, when they've done that, they've then always delivered. When they've always put pressure on themselves, we've always gone, "Cool, this better be bloody good," and then it actually is good because again, traditionally they've always had the confidence in themselves to go, you know what, we can announce this because actually we're really happy with the product that we're going to put out by the end of it. And so I hope that is still the mindset, and there isn't this, as Jack says, and I'm going to use this now, Jack, the doomsday scenario of, well, this could be really bad, and if it goes to the point of December the 15th, the game was now going to be coming out, or January the 31st, the game's going to come out, and we're thinking, this is now not good. I'm going to have to play a lot of EA Sports FC, Jack. That's going to be the problem.
So where I'm worrying, where my concerns are at the minute is FM23 felt like a lot of heat came out, right? And everyone was like,
Sorry,
"Oh
guys.
my god, this." Well, you know what? I'm gonna say, like, it wasn't widely received. I know, Ben, you were very vocal about it yourself. Like, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's not really improved. There's not been any improvements. Like, my expectations haven't been met." SI gave no expectation that the game was going to change drastically between FM22 and FM23, but everyone, well, it didn't live up to my expectations, which only I had in my head, and no one was giving me any consideration for. Then, of course, FM23 wasn't received. FM24, everyone went, well, we're waiting for FM25. Now everyone's going, FM25, do we have to wait for FM27? Like, so they've kind of put a lot of pressure on themselves to not actually convince us that the product's good, which they've got to do anyway, but they've also got to convince a lot of people who probably would have just bought the game anyway, who've taken a year off, or maybe play like 1 year on, 1 year off. They're now having to convince those people to take the punt on 25, to take the punt on 26. And like, that's a risky game to play.
And a lot of those will be people who have claimed the game through Epic Games, well, last week as people at home watch this. That game now feels new to them. Because as much as we say FM24 wasn't a big leap forward, like, the match engine does look significantly better than 23. There was actually part of me that when FM24 came out, I was like, have they shot themselves in the foot by improving the match engine visuals too much? Like, would it have been better to just not touch them for a year? Because, don't get me wrong, it's not revolutionary for the graphics, but like, given the fact we still really haven't seen anything of the Unity 3D, there's part of me sat thinking, what if it just comes out and it just looks like a side grade that we know has a higher ceiling down the line? Because there's still people who are misguided to the point where they think it's going to look like EFC, and I think anyone with, a degree of common sense knows that isn't going to be the reality of it. But if it comes out and we go, that just looks like it's in the same engine, move forward a bit like 23 to 24, like 24 to 25, like, that's going to be concerning. Like you said to me, what do they need to show for me to think, oh, okay, I'm not worried? I just want the gameplay to feel fresher. Like, tactics haven't been touched in a while.
More than that. We've got to be wowed. I'll be totally honest. Like, where we're at now, if it comes out, I'm on this new positive energy thing that I'm doing. But at the same time, if it comes out and I'm a bit like, oh boy, yeah, I'm going to make jokes about it. Yeah, that's going to be my copium. I'm going to be mocking it like, do you know what? This is what we've got. It's what I'm going to play. It kind of is what it is. But deep down, there'll be a bit of me going, flipping heck, we're in like a rough spot here, a spot that no one wants to be in. But I think from a content perspective, no matter what happens, yeah, it's going to be a bit later, but we're in a pretty comfy spot regardless, because people are still going to be interested. It's going to feel it's going to feel new, whether it's new enough or not. So I'm not actually that. Doesn't sound like me, admittedly, but I'm not actually that down on it. Like, I think it will be fine. I just think people are going to have to adjust quickly to the new era, essentially.
It's like that anticipation, isn't it? I think we're all itching just to find out more, and there's been it's almost the anticipation builds, not even the expectations build, just the anticipation for good news builds as these blogs come out now. It feels like I kind of just trying to lower that bar a little bit and kind of avoid people getting too carried away.
Here's a question. Do you think there's going to be early access? I know there has been, like, historically, and I don't know when it first started, but do you think with it being pushed back a bit, like, are we maybe losing that as well, possibly? Do you think?
So my concern is, my game dev hat goes on here, if the game is coming out in late November, people don't want to be working over Christmas. You don't want to have people in the studio over Christmas. If you don't do an early access and people get access to the game last week of November, and then we imagine that kind of 2-week traditional early access period that Football Manager has. Traditionally, there's a patch at the end of that 2 weeks, and then they usually do a follow-up a week or two later. If they don't do early access and the game comes out end of November, the dev team is working through to Christmas. You'd probably have a 3-week period to get updates out, and then they're out the studio for a month, realistically, until you get the next update out, because it's not only being away at Christmas, people have extended holiday, and it's also that momentum's lost where people come back from Christmas and have to be caught up. So in my head, I feel like if there's not early access, how many bugs are people going to find on the full release? Like, Football Manager has spent the last decade conditioning people to this idea, hey, pre-order the game, get it 2 weeks early. Look, there's going to be some bugs, but hopefully you'll be like, there's never been a save, like a world, I think, or an update for a beta where it's been like, don't continue your saves after the 2 weeks, right? It's always been a kind of a general understanding that you can continue beyond the 2 weeks and it should be fine. My concern is if there's no early access period, like what state is the game going to ship in if you lose those 2 weeks of basically mass player testing? It's like if you have 20 playtesters playtest a game for 9 months, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, their total playtime with Football Manager is surpassed by the entire community within 2 hours of the game being out after midnight. You need that wide-scale testing, and if that is only happening at the end of November, oh boy, we got trouble. But they've not announced anything. They've not announced they've not announced anything regarding early access. Like they've not even gone, by the way, there's still going to be early access. Like, you know, in the delay announcement. So I don't know if they.
Well, their delay has allowed a bit more delay. That's the interesting bit about their delay. Actually, isn't just for the release of the game; it's also for the release of their announcements, which they were like, "We're going to announce something." By the way, this announcement is to tell you that our announcements have been delayed as well. So we'll see you at the end of September when we're going to have something, and then we're going to talk about it.
Whenever the end of September, when they launch pre-orders, which I have to assume pre-orders will launch at the end of September, because it's 2 months.
Yeah,
they have to have shown their hand by then, and I feel like knowing that. If they were going to get rid of it, I have to think they would have included that in the initial announcement. Otherwise, it's going to overshadow any other news that comes out around the pre-orders.
But then again, they have said that they are opening the studio to people to go and test it. So is that... I mean, that's still not the same amount as Jack said there about that real-world bug testing that everyone can do within a couple of hours. I mean, it's still... Is that more of a... come down and have a look and be like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Like, we don't know how that's going to work because they're opening it up to, like, FMFC members and stuff. Is that the trade-off, maybe?
It's tough. It's good. Like, I like that transparency, but this is so late that if people come down and go, it's dog shit, we're an hour and a half into the pod. We can say that word now. You know, what are they going to do? They can't, like... go back and be like, oh, we've got to delay another 3 months. I mean, they could, but it's not a good look. Like, no video game that ever does that looks good. And I wonder if end of November is actually going to be early access, sort of as Jack mentions, and actually it's going to be, well, we're going to hit 1.0 at winter update, which is like
the end of January
or late.
I mean, if that happens, crap.
And they're like, it's a new game, it's a new system. You've like, we need it to be. We can't call it 1.0 until we're fully happy with it.
We'll probably do 2 showdowns though. So if they don't really
probably
squeeze another showdown in there.
I mean, the thing is, it probably sounds to listeners like we're being a bit doomsday, but it's like there's an extra month of speculation now compared to any other year. And sadly, based on the information we have, the speculation, like, I don't want to say it has to be doomsday, but I feel like it is that prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
I like the fact as well that it also ties in with anybody who's been commenting recently going, well, they're all sounding far too positive about this. No, not yet. we still have to ask questions.
I just don't know. I don't really, I feel like I've asked for transparency a lot in the past. The blog post that Mars do now, I think I started doing now. I'm not saying I personally responsible, but I think as a community we're kind of responsible for wanting that and saying, look, it's okay if you're open with us, we'll be more receptive to that. We will be. Now, whether Reddit will be or the SI forums will be, slightly different kettle of fish. I'd rather that transparency exist. I think Aaron sort of nailed it. There's certain things you don't need to be transparent about. Don't announce that weight's been removed. Just leave it. It's fine. No one's going to be asked. It's what it is.
The fact they've announced that makes me think they can't have any more bad stuff to announce if they were scraping the bottom of the barrel going, what other bad stuff should we get out the door now?
Shout out, by the way, to Musterman, who, off the back of last week's episode, has redrafted his skin. We've posted it on Twitter, so go and have a look on our Twitter feeds about it. He's redrafted his skin to take weight out of the player attributes and replace them with a scale of animals, as we asked. So well done, Musterman. That's wonderful.
I hope in the next blog post Miles announces that he's going to be using that system, and they're actually really proud of that system.
We've also taken off height as well, so now we have to work out how tall a player is compared to animals.
Double-decker boss.
I was thinking numbers of bananas.
Right, again,
bananas for scale.
This is Patreon content that we shouldn't be wasting now, Jack. But again, I'm not overly. Again, it doesn't sound like me. I'm not overly worried about it. I understand people's pessimism. I understand people's concern. until we find out what's there, like, I'm not really bothered about what's not there, because if it's not there, it's not there. I really want to, you sort of asked the question to open this up, Tony, is like, what do you really hope has to be there? I think Si nailed it. I think the 3D match engine needs to look like it's been made in 2024. And that's basically where the conversation starts and ends. I'm not that worried about the tactical stuff. I'm not that worried about training, not that worried about scouting or transfer systems. They've got all those systems. They've got a massive player database. They've got loads of leagues. They've got new licensing. All of that stuff is exciting. But they've sort of put their eggs in the, we're on a new engine. Better look and feel like it.
You say
then.
they've got all those systems, but I always think about that thing they say was like, if we could do stuff differently, what would we do different?
Jack, don't, because I'm trying to forget that it wasn't
Right.
written.
I tell you what, I'm gonna take us on a journey at this point, right? Okay, because obviously we're 2024, we're trying to work out what comes next, right? Miles has said this is the FM24 is the last of the current cycle. Okay, cast our minds all the way back to when this cycle started. None of us were making. I don't know. Am I right or wrong? None of us were making content at that point. I don't think.
What year are we going?
2006.
2006.
I was, but not football manager content. So it doesn't count.
I was filming in a skate park in Lincoln. Does that
Okay.
doesn't count for anything?
But okay, so we're not having the same conversations about what happens from FM 2005 to FM 2006. Like, the world obviously was a different place back then. But I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong here, FM 2006, was that the perfect starting point? I don't seem to think it was. I remember FM 2008 was an absolute banger, but I don't think 6, maybe 7.
I remember 5 and 6 though. I remember playing them both and thinking these are cool. But I remember at the same time thinking, oh, this isn't Championship Manager, and it doesn't feel like Championship Manager. And being a bit like, oh, these systems aren't the same, and actually it feels very different. I think, and I think Jack might say this as well, is that had I known in 2006 there wouldn't be a change until 2024. That's the bit that would worry me to a degree, that there wasn't a middle point of like 20. Like, but at the same time, my nostalgia for it might be the same as Jack's. Like 2014, 15, 16, 17 was like a bit of a golden age of football manager games where Jack sort of began to make a career out of it. I started to make a career out of it. Like, I got a lot of love for that era. And so maybe my...
Oh, it was deeply flawed. The amount of back passes to goalkeepers that they'd go in. Like, I've not seen... Whenever that happens in game now, they get the goal line check. Like, that used to go in once a season. Like,
but as a content creator, Jack, I feel a bit like... I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel, especially in like the TikTok generation, I'm kind of waiting for stuff to go wrong. I kind of want there to be this like...
That's why I like F1 Manager.
Yeah, I want there to be this like chaos to it, because my early content was like quite chaotic. And so if there are bugs and there are things that go wrong... I'm just not as bothered as I was.
Can you remember when FIFA moved to Frostbite? Oh, and there was all like the collision bugs where players would get stuck into and ping across. Great content. If they want to do that in Unity, like, I don't care. That'd be great.
I kind of want it. I want bungee jumping. I kind of want this sort of stuff to happen. But again, will it make the game worse? Yeah, of course. There'll be like the tactical purists that play Football Manager for that reason that will be like, they've ruined the fundamental of what made this good.
They made it for children.
I'll never buy it again. Wait, when's the next one out? Like, that's what will inevitably happen.
I mean, we put one of them on a couple of weeks ago, Si, as part of Patreon, and we looked at the skin, and we were going like, this is actually quite clean and quite nice and quite pure when you go back to it. And remembering the moments when they were going, oh, hey, we've released dark mode, and you're like, ooh.
I remember the sidebar arrived.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah. You went to the next blog place removes dark mode. Then
I think it was one of the first ever fan site events I went to in person. Was the year where they'd got rid of the top bar and added the sidebar, and they'd also added an official in-game editor. And the outrage from the hardcore players, like, you just make it so everyone can cheat now, and you're charging for it, and you've ruined the user interface. Like, these conversations of, like, you know, it happens like generation on generation. I remember people being annoyed when FM09 had a 3D engine.
Yeah, but it took longer to complain on dial-up internet, though, whereas now, like, everyone's got really fast internet, so you can complain in super quick time.
Miles would see people on a thread for a period of time. He's like, I'm just going to ring up their home number that's attached to their account, get them offline.
Yeah, that was swiftly dealt with. Like, I think, looking at it as like a whole thing, the idea that we've had the biggest Football Manager event ever, and then we're being a bit sceptical 2 weeks later, is obviously, to me, is like the glaring problem with the whole thing of like, we shouldn't be like this right now. We should all be on like a bit of a high. And so whatever I'm taking, I'll pass it round, because I do think like, and I've not played the game for a full year, and I guess I'm coming from that perspective of like, actually I've had 10 months off. Before this event started, I had 90 hours. they were all the beta streams up until Christmas, and then I really haven't played the game, and so I'm not conditioned to be like, oh, I'm not panicked about it. Even the saves I'm playing now, I'm just enjoying doing the challenges from the World Cup. And so I do have this attitude of like, whatever it is, it'll be fine. Again, probably the wrong attitude to have from a consumer perspective, but like whatever it is, it will be fine. Like we will be fine. I've got enough trust in the company that like they know that as well. It's not the case of like they're going to bring out something that's going to be completely half done. The reason they're making these changes and the reason things are being taken out is so they can still produce a game that everyone is happy with, not so everyone is still like meh. They are trying to get us to a point of actually still being happy with it. So
I mean, naturally, we are going to be more invested because we make content and, you know, living in some instances around the game, right? So if the game's bad, that affects our bottom line.
I want my career back. Yeah, sorry, I should be more clear. I do really want my career back. Please bring it out at some point.
But I'm going to go circling this. So I think maybe we're coming at this, or maybe certainly I am. I know I certainly come across in a slightly different way to this. That because we're making content on it, like we're almost sort of we're conditioned to, if it is difficult and it's not working the way that the purists want it to work, our job is to still find the fun and find the stories and find the entertainment in it. And we're really good at that. Like, you know, Jack, you've been telling those stories for 10 years. You know, Ben, you're putting the showdown together. You know how to sell a product. Like Si, you've done pretty much every form of video known to man on every platform, whether it's, you know, the actual full fat game, console, mobile. I wrote a stand-up show and a podcast about this game. It's not like we're not invested in telling the one thing which Football Manager is all about, and that is story. Like, it doesn't matter how it plays, we will find the story in it, and that's how we're going to do it. Yes, it might not be the most difficult game in the world. Yes, there might be things that don't work, but ultimately, can we find something out of it?
I mean, that's the thing. People ask me, am I worried? It's like, not really. I can't control it. There's been bad patches of Football Manager I've had to play with. There was the year where we watched every cross hit the crossbar and go out. This year, as Aaron will let everyone know, the ball hits the woodwork too much. Like, there was the year where fullbacks were like the best role in the game, and Marcos Alonso's winning a Ballon d'Or. Like, it's always going to be weird to Football Manager. Part of me wonders, like, because we're so ear to the ground and hyper attentive, I guess, to the game, there's probably a lot of people who just don't care about all these announcements and probably think, wow, these guys are really getting down about stuff that doesn't really bother me.
They're not listening to this, to be fair.
They don't even know there's a podcast.
Yeah, they don't even know there's a Football Manager podcast.
It's going to be interesting. I think that is the interesting thing is there going to be a section of people who aren't attached, who don't know of the engine change and stuff? You know, the Gary whose wife buys him the game every Christmas, and if he opens up the game and goes, oh, there's no international manager. Oh, the whole user interface has changed. It's like messaging to those people is going to be almost as important as to everyone else, and I feel like that's where stuff like the Premier League partnership, like, might be even
sells it to them, isn't it?
There's going to be a lull of, we'll call it FIFA, but everyone knows which game I'm on about, right? When that sort of dies down a little bit, and traditionally does every single year, and the Football Manager are going to be able to go, look at our big new game, and oh, look, there's Erling Haaland, and there's Mikel Arteta, and there's like Trent Alexander-Arnold on the front cover of our game, whatever they want to do with the licensing and the branding that's going to enable them to do that, whether it's commercial or whether it's like in-game. They're going to be able to sell the game in that way, and it's going. And again, if the engine, imagine the engine does look like way better, and imagine the graphics do look like 2024.
This could age horrifically. This whole podcast. Yeah, like, what's the opposite of the Doomsday Bell? SI a great bell that I'm waving in 2 months.
If it comes out like that, and then they get to sell their game like that to a younger generation, it brings in like the player numbers. What, are 10, 12 million now, or something like that? Like, it's a big number. That's a big number to begin with, and you bring in some people that are looking for something different, that are a bit disillusioned with what EA have been doing for X amount of time. Then blimey, we could be looking at a bigger game, and then the year after that they go, by the way, fantasy draft mode, international football, we are going to bring weight back, actually, we figured out the code. Like, all these things that like people are worried about and pessimistic about right now will come out in a year. People's concern for me, from what I wrote on Twitter, is like, all these things are removed and they still have to pay the same price, which like is the thing we've not talked about. Now, if that is the issue, then that is the issue, I guess. It's not necessarily an issue for us four, but it is for other people, that it is the one game they buy, look forward to and play all year. And if they don't have that experience, then those are the people, like we sort of about the casuals, right? If the casuals lose that experience, that's the risk. But there's also that other element of, like, as Jack said, we could look really stupid in a month when it's been announced, it looks great and everyone's really pumped for it. Like, that can happen too.
Football Manager always do their demos. I feel like if they don't do a demo, that would be a concern to me. Because I feel like that's a really easy way to kind of get people in.
I don't think they do it anymore.
I'm pretty sure they. I will check. I'm 99.9% sure they do still do it.
Feels
I think
like a
now
CD-ROM
it's
in
all
a cereal box kind of thing.
That's how I go
Even
into the
Arnold,
game.
they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
2000. Yeah, I'll buy Frosties this week, Mum. Come on, let's go.
I think I had LMA Manager on a PlayStation demo disc. But the thing, like the other thing, is that how many people are like taking a chance on Foot Manager because they see it on PlayStation Plus or Game Pass or Apple Arcade right now, and like that person who downloads that game and gets overwhelmed with the current interface. Okay, it's the console mode or it's the touch mode or whatever. But even then, it's like if they can change those people and get those people invested in the series, and you can just go look at the numbers that Miles quotes, as Ben mentioned a second ago. What is it, 10 million this year or 12 million this year?
There's always I do want to call out these numbers a little bit because that is counting. Somebody launches Game Pass and hits play on the game once, then goes, I'm never playing this again.
But that's who they need to get their
if
game
they subscribe to you for one video and then they never watch another video, you still got your pluck in the background, haven't you?
That's true. Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Thanks to everyone who's watched this video all the way through. Thank you.
Have you got to this point? Thanks so much. You are the 5.86%.
I've had gigs where people don't watch the gig all the way through, so I still count their ticket money. Do you know what I mean? Like,
we had one person who didn't watch the video in 1 second and decided to comment last week.
I can confirm there is a demo. So
good.
I feel like for all the apprehensive people, it'll be a very easy sell for us as content creators to go, if you think the UI looks awful, go play it for 6 months in game.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I do think I think that, like, you mentioned there, we talk about the casual gamer. I think that they're going to be quite happy opening it up and playing as Manchester United, as Manchester City, as Liverpool, as Chelsea, as Arsenal. Having all the players that they know, they don't have to go searching for kit packs and logos.
It's going to really hit my views this year, isn't it?
But I mean, look, let's be honest. There's a huge amount of people who, for them, that will be the big thing. They've got the faces in the game now. They can see all of the players. They can see, every single player that they know, and the kits are all there, and they're going to have a great time. And that's brilliant. We know that there's people who would class themselves as die-hard FM players who still go, hey, do you remember LMA Manager? That was mint, wasn't it? No, it looked rubbish. Like, when you think about it, it looked rubbish.
But you could build your own stadium, Tony.
Yeah, but it was stripped back. There was so much you couldn't do. So if we're talking about, if there's people getting angry that things have been taken out but are still harking back for a world where things weren't there anyway, I mean, is that just people being people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Welcome to the internet.
Give me Champ Manager 93, 94 is essentially what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Like, I think my message to Football Manager players are it will be fine. Don't worry. Yeah. I predict it will be fine.
It will be absolutely fine. Okay, so do we have a favourite from the series then? Is the one that stands out to you? I know we asked it last week and the answers were quite unanimous, but has anyone got a different answer?
Well, last week was Kevin going, this is the best game, so it's obviously the best game. So, yeah, the current version is the one I made the most money on. It's the classic Kevin. But I think the boys are absolutely right. The best Football Manager is the one the ones that I have the most fond memories on, which is why I always mention Championship Manager 0102, which is why I always mention FM16 and always mention FM18, because I had Salford, Thames, and 0102 was the greatest football management game of all time. So they were great, but like, I don't know, they're right at the same time that this is the most, like, I haven't really played it, but from what I've heard, this is the most complete version of Football Manager. So this is the best version as it is. It might be, I think the worry for a lot of people is, though, Tony, it might be the best version for a few years. Maybe this will be the first time ever the new game isn't actually the best version. So that'd be interesting.
True. Si, have you got anything on that?
Well, we discussed my FM16 save the other week. That was a wild
16.
journey, to say the least. Yeah. But I quite liked when they added the 3D match engine, which I think is 09. And that was a big upgrade. And I was like, yes, I don't have to watch these 2D dots run around the pitch anymore. And like,
I remember
the ball would
that,
go off the pitch.
I remember that
were
when
no
dots
stands.
were added. I think it was CM4.
Yeah.
And it was like on the box, it was like, now with 2D view. And that was the point where I looked at my older brother and went, I can watch the game. I don't have to read as a 12-year-old. I'm in.
Yeah. I was looking at that going, I'm going to have to buy a new PC now, aren't I? This is like...
Yeah, there's going to be people that bites actually with the new game. Like, they've still not released the minimum spec and stuff. That's going to be interesting to see. Is there a group of people that they alienate there? Are those people not going to be bothered because FM24 is better? Is it a case of it's going to look more like a next-gen game?
there'll be the same people trying to load every league into the game and load every player, and they're like, "Why is it so slow?" I'm like, "Because you've loaded 152 leagues and 100,000 players. Like, of course, it's going to be slow."
Yeah. I just miss.
I might get a wonder kid in the Madagascan 4th division, so I've got to have it in. Otherwise, it's not realistic.
I remember when I worked at Sports Interactive, there was a guy who worked there as a tester, and he did a save game where he had everything loaded, and he kind of wore it as a badge of honour. And he'd play it in his free time. I remember one week he went away for a week and was like, "Yeah, I've been playing Football Manager a week." And like, "Oh, how many seasons did you do?" He was like, "A month and a half." I'm like, you know what? Respect, but it's not for me. I think my favourite Football Manager was the ones where, can you remember when you could mod the regen faces with hair packs? And it was like 14 and 15.
Yeah.
And you could add like collars and stuff to them. That was the best the new gens have ever looked. So...
don't give them ideas, Jack.
That's one of my favourites. But all I'm saying is,
next week.
Well, no one has mentioned the new gen faces yet. If they somehow look worse in Unity, I'm gonna be shaking.
They're pretty good this year, from what I've observed, from my little bit of playing recently. I think they're not too bad this year. From where
about 1 in 10 has freckles all over their face. There's nothing wrong with having freckles, but their faces look like dirty.
Not a problem.
They don't look good in the
from
3D.
Lincolnshire.
At least 4 players in every reserve team has a Mohican as well, and you're just like,
sign of the times, Tony. Sign of the times. I'm so positive. What's happened to me? What is wrong with me? What's this event done to me? Where I'm going, sign of the times, Tony. Get over it, mate. The game's great.
Jeez, I don't know. I don't
Everyone.
know what they're putting in his tea, but we need to.
Come on.
I need some of it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Come on.
Yeah, better regen faces. But if they've not been touched, then I'm going to be like, what are we doing here?
Photorealistic? Do they have to be photorealistic?
No, I just want them to look like humans. The bar's fairly low, really.
You want them to be photorealistic.
Do you reckon the big announcement is that your manager can wear a bow tie? Do you reckon that could be the big thing? Like, hey, we gave you eye patches last year, but it's bow ties now, so...
It'll be a big clock. Like Flavor Flav. That'll be what you have.
That's kind of what I said there.
For added time, you can check your own time.
Well, unless there's earpieces this year, I won't feel like it's me. So again, with my
I think there is
persona,
there's earpieces this year.
I don't honestly, Jack, don't remember. How low did your save? So
well, I just want like a different manager. Could be like an iPad manager. You know, they have tracksuit and suit. I want the manager has an iPad in their hand on the touchline. You know, you're better at the tactics, the analytics.
Oh, maybe just where you sit. So like instead of sitting in the dugout, you always sit in the stands.
Or you got a cool box that you sit on if you're cigar managers. You can have all different kinds of manager types.
I should know this. Can you transfer games that you're playing on your PC onto Touch this year and then just play it with the same save?
No.
I'll tell you what, that'd be a good feature. Sports Interactive, bring that in.
Well, to be fair, they brought the compatibility between 23 and 24. I'm sat thinking, how's that going to work with no international management between this year and next year?
Just lose your job. Or you're locked there,
just load it and you're unemployed.
In that case, I'm definitely not continuing my save. I can't take 2 seconds. Come on, I'm done well for not
it's not so much the sacking, it's more just a meeting. That's some bad news.
I like the idea it just kind of
expanded the national team. How's it going that badly yet?
I like the idea it kind of detaches you. There's just a clone of you who remains in charge. Like, and if he gets fired, there's just another Tony in the universe going around Greece getting jobs.
but can only be an international manager and just freelances international management jobs. But it's not you, but you know it is you.
You can role play though. You can attend every game. It's like
CV just puts N suddenly. You're like, oh, fine.
Yeah. Mutual termination. I did not agree to anything. What's going on? That was nothing to do with me.
No, I just wait until. Do you reckon someone would mod an international pack possibly? Put the internet, try and squeeze it in. Go, oh, you can play international management now. I've got a database.
You can, but
they've made all the nations clubs.
I was going to say, in this 38-game leagues format, you can now be England. But yeah, it's not quite as it used to be. And by the way, international duty is very limited to summer.
Just put Leroy Sané. How? Like, well, we changed nationality. But never mind.
Yeah, Haaland was born in Leeds actually, so I don't know why you complained.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, you know what? I think we've gone full circle. We've gone from happy to happy again. So it'll all be fine. It's the
I feel like I've just gone
life.
through therapy. I feel good now.
Different podcast, Jack. Different podcast, mate.
No, I still feel like I've got on a journey. Wait, this isn't that podcast.
It's not. It's time to lock down. It's time to lock down, though, and we're going to go and talk some nonsense on Patreon. So if you want to come and join us and find out what we talk about behind closed doors, Si, do you want to do the honours?
Yep, you can join us at the patreon.com/the FM pod show. Oh, I've got it wrong.
How many times?
I'm amazed
That is my
you've got any
first time.
patrons.
My
Like,
second
honestly.
I've never had to do it.
Patreon.com/the FM Show Pod. That's where you
Oh,
can
I got
join
pod
that.
show
Yeah.
pods. The wrong way around.
£3 a month for fantastic bonus content you don't get nowhere else. But content where you get from all over the place. Jack, Ben, Si, plug yourselves. Jack, we'll start with you first. Where can people find you?
Work the space. If you go to work.space as a URL, it'll just take you wherever you need to be. YouTube, Twitch. Do a bit of F1 Manager at the moment. Got another month of that now, so that's good. Yeah, the Football Manager stuff coming soon.
Yeah, if Nerdphonic lets me continue to do content after what I've announced today, Doctor Benjy everywhere. I'm really trying to push Instagram and TikTok. So if you're curious, Doctor Benjy or Doctor Benjy FM everywhere.
That's cool. And Si?
Yes, not Sports Interactive, Maggio. I don't work there. Don't send me abusive messages about weight or whatever else you don't
why
like
do you
in the
always do
game.
this?
I know. It's Si Maggio. Everything: TikTok, Insta, Twitch, YouTube. Too many things. I need one of them to fail, so I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Don't talk about that. We've got a football shirt podcast. Stop trying to get things to fail. You know what I mean?
No, I mean one of these platforms to fail. Probably X. I need X to
What a
disappear.
weird end to the podcast. This is.
You know what? I'm doing too well, if anything.
If anything, I need Elon Musk to say some more terrible stuff. So anyway, where were we?
You can follow me all these places, but you know what? I don't bother. I don't even do it anymore. Now I've got rid of it.
For now, I hope.
Oh, excellent. I've got a feeling Patreon's going to be fun. Make sure you drop us all a follow, hit the like on the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, all that good stuff. Take care of yourselves, everyone. We'll see you all next week. And remember, you didn't hear about the Streamer Showdown. You did, right? Take care, everyone. All the best. Bye now.
Do not tell Matthew.